Hello and welcome to Hope After. This is a space for couples navigating the impact of pornography on their marriage. And everything we share here comes from lived experience because we've walked this road ourselves. And what we offer has been shaped through the healing and rebuilding that God has led us through. As scripture reminds us, God restores what has been broken. So we're called to walk with others as that restoration unfolds. And this isn't theory, it's truth lived out and shared carefully with you. Today's conversation is one that sits right at the heart of many marriages after discovery. He says that he's stopped, and the question that quietly follows for the wife is, should I believe him? And how do I begin to trust him again? This is one of the most common questions that we hear. A husband says, I've stopped, I'm done, that part of my life is over. And for a moment, there's a part of you that wants to believe it because you want peace, you want your marriage back, you want relief, you want this all to be over. But alongside that, there is another voice, a quieter, steadier one that says, but how do I know? And that tension can feel incredibly hard to hold. There's often a pressure, both internal and external, to move forward quickly, to accept what's been said and to choose trust, not to feel like you're holding things back. But trust isn't something you can simply decide into existence, especially not when what's been broken has been broken over time.
From the husband's side, there can be a genuine desire to mean it, to say, I'm done, and truly want that to be true. But wanting something to be true and having the structure to live it out are not the same thing.
So let's gently reframe this question, because the question isn't actually, should I believe him? The more helpful question is, what has changed that makes this different? Because stopping pornography use is not just about a decision, it's about transformation, and transformation requires structure. After long-term pornography use, the brain doesn't simply reset overnight. For the man, patterns have been formed and pathways have been reinforced and habits have been relied upon. So when he says, I've stopped, without anything else changing around it, there's no real foundation for that change to hold. Not because he's lying necessarily, but because the system that supported the behavior hasn't yet been addressed. And this is something we had to learn in our own marriage. I remember when you said, Jez, I've stopped now, and I could see that you meant it. There was a part of me that wanted to breathe again, to just accept it and move forward. But underneath that, there was this quiet unease that I couldn't really name. Not because I didn't want to believe you, but because I didn't yet have anything to hold on to. And when we looked at it honestly, nothing around that decision had really changed yet. There wasn't a structure, there wasn't a support, there wasn't anything visible that made it any different. And that's when we realized that we were trying to rebuild trust on words alone, rather than on something that could actually sustain change.
Yes, and from my side, I genuinely believed I was done. I wasn't trying to deceive you, but I hadn't yet understood that wanting to stop and being equipped to live differently are not quite the same thing. I hadn't put anything in place to support that decision.
And it's important to say clearly to the woman that you're not wrong if you don't immediately trust his words. That isn't you being difficult, and it's not you being unforgiving. That is you recognizing that trust is built on evidence, not intention. So what does real change actually look like? If this is truly different, there will be evidence of that difference, not just in words, but in structure. Things like openness and transparency, willingness to be accountable, practical safeguards in place, a clear understanding of triggers and patterns, a proper plan for what happens when temptation comes, and support beyond just willpower. Because without these things, what you have is hope, and hope is great, but it's not yet stability. Another important piece is this: recovery isn't built on the assumption that there will never be a struggle again. It's built on knowing what to do when that struggle comes. So if there's no plan for relapse, no structure for accountability, then the change hasn't yet been fully established. So instead of asking yourself, should I trust him? You might gently ask, is there enough evidence yet for trust to begin to grow? Because trust doesn't return all at once. It rebuilds slowly through consistency, through clarity, through follow through. For the wife, you might want to say things like, I want to believe what you're saying, but I think I need to understand what's actually different this time. Or, when I hear that you've stopped, part of me feels relief, but part of me still feels unsure. Or you could say, what would help me feel safer is seeing what's in place to support that change.
For the husband, you might consider these sentence starters. I understand why these words don't feel like enough right now. Or, I don't just want to say I've changed, I want to show you over time. You could also reassure your wife by saying, these are the steps I'm putting in place. Also, if I struggle, I want you to know there's a plan for how I respond differently. The aim is to rebuild this properly, not to rush it.
It's important to acknowledge that long-term pornography use reshapes habits, coping mechanisms, and brain pathways. Change requires interrupting those patterns, not just deciding differently. Trust is rebuilt through consistent, observable behavior over time, and early recovery without structure carries a high risk of returning to old patterns. Accountability, transparency, and support are essential for lasting change. And it is both normal and wise for trust to rebuild gradually, not instantly. So, if you're in this place trying to work out what's real, what's changed, and what to trust, this is exactly the kind of ground we help couples walk through inside Hope After, not rushing trust, but rebuilding it properly with clarity, structure, and support for both of you. You can find out more at hope-after.com. There's a difference between wanting something to be different and building something that actually is. And trust lives in that difference, not in promises, but in patterns, not in words, but in what is lived out over time. And when that begins to take shape, trust doesn't have to be forced, it begins to grow again. Thank you for joining us today. If this episode has helped you put words to something you've been carrying quietly, you're not alone. There's a steady way forward, and there's hope after.